Hello and welcome to InterVarsity's Upstate New York Senior Programming. We are so glad you're here and we are super excited to partner alongside with you in this journey of finishing college and beyond. My name is David Giordano and I am on staff with InterVarsity as a campus minister at Vassar College. Now, if you're watching this, it's likely that you or someone you know or love is in their senior year of college and is about to finish their undergrad journey, which is super exciting. That also means that a lot of different things are going to change. And that also brings up a lot of feelings of uncertainty and anxiety over what comes next. Maybe you feel like the last 4 years have gone too fast and you're not sure if you're equipped for whatever comes next or even if you even know what is going to come next. And I'm sure it doesn't help that you're getting probably bombarded with questions from friends, family, maybe even some faculty members of what are your plans after graduation? What are your plans after college? Especially if you don't know yet. Or maybe you're in the boat where you have a job lined up, and maybe you got into grad school and you're super excited, just ready to move on. We are so happy. We are so happy for you, and I want you to know that wherever you're coming in, that's totally okay. We want to speak to both of you today as you're getting ready to manage a really valuable life skill, one that you've done in the past and one that you're going to do in the future, one that you're doing right now, and that's managing change and transition. And college is one of those seasons where you're helping build a foundation for the rest of your life. And the skill of managing transition is part of building that foundation. And we want to help you. We want to help you manage the change, manage the transition, and give you some tools that we have that we can help you in. And one of those tools is found in Erica Rietz's book, After College. And she starts the book quoting a transition theorist named William Bridges, who helps us understand transition by drawing a contrast between change and transition. He says that change is what's happening on the outside, our external circumstances, whereas transition, which was more about what we're going to talk about today, is internal, how we are affected personally. For instance, a change and transition that we all share in common is the COVID-19 pandemic. As of this video, many of us are still living through this, and we all share a lot of the common effects of what's been going on over the course of the last year. And one of those effects is that we all were, in one way or another, forced to embrace some kind of external change. Think back to the time when this unfolded in the United States back in March of 2020. What was the change and what was the transition that you had to manage during that time? For example, in school, we changed from in-person, on-campus classes to distance learning, most of us from our homes or other places in a matter of weeks. The change was that we had to leave campus. Now, the transition that took place internally might have initially been the uncertainty and the confusion, first of all, over what was just going on in general and over how we were going to manage distance learning. Questions over how will exams be conducted? How will we do lectures? What new habits or skills do I need to acquire to do this well? Another external change was that for a few months, we couldn't be with our friends in person, and we only had social media and virtual platforms available. On the transition side of this, we were dealing with feelings of loneliness, isolation, and Zoom fatigue. All stuff, by the way, that we are still experiencing in one way or another. So, college graduation, sort of like the coronavirus pandemic, is going to bring about a lot of change. And we will be forced to embrace a new normal, especially after graduation. Now, no two experiences are exactly alike, and no two people are going to experience the exact same things, either in the changes or the internal transition for that matter. However, it's very common that after graduation to feel stuck in this sort of indefinite in between time, sort of like not knowing how long we're going to be on lockdown as a nation. Now, obviously, we can't predict the future or know fully what your experience in particular after graduation is going to entail. But graduation, like I said, will not be the last time you go through a transition. Life has a series of cycles of potential transitions. You go from one job to another. You go from being single to being married, potentially. You go from that to having a family, or maybe you have to relocate. But any change in transition always starts with the ability to finish well. And that would be the main focus of our video today. Because for any transition to go well, whatever you're saying goodbye to, there has to be good closure. We have to finish well in our senior year. And I want to share with you today a couple of ways in which finishing well will help you thrive. Here are two ways that you can finish well. The first way to finish well is to finish well with your obligations. Now, this may sound kind of obvious, but I'm sure you're familiar with the term senioritis. Many of us felt this in our last way of high school, in our last year of high school, for example, and we might still feel this in our last year of college as well. The Merriam-Webster definition of senioritis is, and quote, an ebbing of motivation and effort by school seniors, which is evidenced by tardiness, absences, and possibly even lower grades. We might be feeling this sort of lack of motivation in our coursework and other obligations, such as jobs, roles in clubs, or whatever you're obligated to do this final year. But see, finishing well with our obligations gives us a sense of accomplishment that can help set us up well for what's next. Sort of like when you wake up in the morning, it's said that it's the best thing you could possibly do to start your day is simply to make your bed, or possibly to work out, or just do something small to help get your mind going for whatever lies ahead that day. It's often little things that we do in the morning that help us give us the motivation for forward progress. And this is actually true also for your final year of college. Now, please don't hear this and think that anything less than a 4.0 GPA or perfect performance will make you a failure. Now, by all means, go for those things. But the principle here is about fighting the mentality to sort of coast, which will hinder your ability to finish well and therefore transition well. You need to have that sense of accomplishment and that sense of I did my best previously, which will help you move forward. We transition well by finishing well in our obligations, and we also finish well on top of our obligations by finishing well in our relationships. Believe it or not, there's actually a lot of opportunities in this area. For instance, when you were a freshman or a sophomore, what upperclassmen invested in you? How did that impact your college experience? Right now, at this very moment, you have the opportunity to be that for someone else. Maybe that's someone in your campus fellowship or another club you're a part of, or in one of your classes, whatever. Maybe take time this semester to pray and ask God, who's a freshman or sophomore that you could invest just even a little bit of time in that you might be able to help transform their college experience. Transition Transitioning well is full of a lot of goodbyes. And one of those goodbyes will have to also to be to many of your friends. Without question, you will remain friends with many of them, potentially for a very long time, or maybe even the rest of your life. The friendship will be no different. But what will be different is the fact that you will go from seeing them almost every day to, at the very least, much, much less. So it'll be crucial to make time in your schedule to make sure you get proper goodbye for all your people, for all your friends, making sure that there's true closure brought to your college experience. It can be very easy to schedule only time for work because you got to make money, or for classes because you got to get your grades well. But there's more to finishing well than just those things. The other side of the coin is that emotionally we need to finish well in our relationships, and that also means making the proper time for our friends. And on top of underclassmen, friends, it's also possible that maybe you have unresolved conflict with one of your peers or someone in the school that it wouldn't be healthy to carry with you beyond school. Um, Paul talks about in Romans chapter 12, where he says, "So much as it depends on you, be at peace with all people." It will be very helpful for you, just emotionally and spiritually, principally, to leave college with as much as you possibly can your account settled with people. I personally actually made a mistake in this area, and I graduated with an unresolved conflict. Unfortunately, it wasn't just with anybody. I actually graduated with an unresolved conflict with the president of the college. I can't get into the story of what happened, but basically there was just a misunderstanding that both of us walked away with. And to be honest, I just didn't want to deal with it. I just thought that going away from college and getting away from the situation would make me feel better. I was under the impression that as long as I was with these people and saw them, that that was the problem. But I carried this with me outside college, and I remember it caused kind of an uncanny depression. And I really wasn't able to transition well, even to what I was doing next, because of this emotional difficulty I was dealing with. That unfortunately was because of the fact that I had taken this unresolved conflict with me with the college president outside college. It took me a while, but eventually I realized that um, I had to make this right. So after 2 years after graduation, I actually made an appointment with this faculty member, drove up to campus, went into his office, had a 1 hour meeting, and we were able to hash out what had happened and uh, and come to a common understanding and even be relationally reconciled. That took such a huge weight off my shoulders and allowed me to, even after 2 years, finally transition well into my life. And it's actually part of the way that I was able to come on staff was because of that resolution that I created with that president. Now, you might not have an unresolved conflict with the president of your college, but maybe it's with one of your peers, maybe a faculty member, whatever it is. I would highly suggest that you make that right this semester or this year so much as you possibly can. And on that note, we're going to go into a time of reflection and discussion. We're going to pause this video and we're going to ask the questions of where have you given into senioritis, where maybe there's that lack of motivation, or maybe there are places where you see it giving your best. What are the places where you're seeing it brought to completion? Maybe you have a role or responsibility on a sports team or a club. Um, start thinking about the people that you want to invest with, and think about the broken relationships that you need to make right. So we're going to go ahead and pause and send you off into your groups, and we'll be back after you discuss. Welcome back. I hope you had a good time of discussion, and I hope you were able to reflect well on some practical ways that maybe you need to finish well and say goodbye as you finish up this last year of college. Now, we finish well so that we can land on our feet well for whatever comes next. Now, I want you to think about the question, what are your expectations for after college? Now, you were probably also asking that question back in high school. If you were to compare how college went to how you thought it would went when you were graduating high school, what's the difference that you see between your expectations and your lived reality? They're often not very close together, and we always have to keep that in mind as we're going forward for life after college. Now, everyone goes through their own unique circumstances, and I can't say for sure what each and every one of you might go through. But in her book, After College by Erica Reitz, she talks about how after the end of graduation, a lot of people go through this sort of in-between time or a neutral zone. Now, in college, the concepts of time and seasons are actually pretty concrete. Semesters have very clear beginnings and clear endings. Syllabi have very clear deliverables, times, deadlines. And if you're in the middle of a really difficult semester, you know exactly how many weeks that you have to muscle through. But after the college years, these difficult seasons are much more ambiguous. And that's totally okay. That's completely normal. Again, it won't be easy to get into the specifics of what that might look like for you. But Reitz offers several tips on how we could manage feeling stuck when we're questioning our decisions, when we're not really sure if we're in the right place or not, and when things just feel like nothing is happening. She offers 4 things, and we're going to go through them really quickly as we conclude our time here. And the first one is to simply give yourself permission to be in the in-between time, to lean into the ambiguity. She tells the story of someone who graduated college and managed to get a school teaching position. She had studied for this for several years. This was her dream job, but For the first 6 or so months, it really wasn't going well. She found herself working really long hours over the weekend, trying to manage things that she felt like she hadn't been trained for. She even questioned if she had wasted her degree and wasted her money on something that she really didn't want to do. Eventually, she was able to press through that kind of in between time of uncertainty, questioning your decisions, and eventually she did manage to land on her feet well. 'Cause the principle here is even when you're in that place that you strive to be for even several years, you're going to question your decisions at times. There's adversities that college just simply doesn't prepare you for. And it takes an inner resilience for us to go through that. And one of the ways we go through that, which leads us to her second point, is simply to reflect and process. Take time to slow down. Maybe you like journaling. Maybe you like taking long walks. Whatever it takes for you to um, think about what's going on in your life, ways going simply below the surface, because we don't want to miss what's going on, and also like what God is doing. God often puts us through this in between seasons to form us and shape us, and Jesus was no exception. Before Jesus could step into his life and his ministry, he spent 40 days in the desert to fast and to be tempted by the devil. And in this reflection and process, which leads us to number three, is to simply be attentive to what is going on inside of you and what is going on around you. You're not going to be the only one in your situation. There's going to be other people around you that God is using to form you, and that He might be using you to form them as well. This could be coworkers. This could be people in church. Pay specifically close attention to where you are and where you find yourself, even if it's not necessarily where you want to be, because it's the places where we don't necessarily want to be that God wants to use to form us the most, to prepare us for the places that He wants us to be. And when you're in that place, reads in number 4 says simply just to be patient with yourself. It's okay if things happen. Personally, I know what it means to get laid off of a job. I know what it means to get into a little bit of financial trouble, and I know what it means to get out of those things. I know what it means to go through seasons where your friends aren't necessarily around you, and you're not really sure exactly what is going on. But this all comes around the idea of leaning into the ambiguity and being okay with the fact that there's not necessarily a seen end in sight to this weird time where you're questioning all your decisions, but we know that God is in control and that He is using that to form us and shape us. So we're gonna go back into discussion in groups, and we're gonna ask, what was our transition into college like? What went well, and what didn't well? Because if we can manage our expectations well, we will be set up to manage the transition well as well. And also, what did you learn from your transition into college, especially as you're approaching this coming transition, which entails finishing well and leaning into the in between time, leaning into the ambiguity. So hope that goes well for you guys. Thank you so much. Was great to be here with you, and we'll be praying for you and hope this transition goes well for you. Thank you.